Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I'm Angela Fobbs, the chair of the Global Black Caucus, and I'm also a member of the Global Women's Caucus Steering Committee. Today with me are Sherry Temple, our Global IT Chair, Global Women Caucus Steering Team Leader, team member, and the ERA Project Coordinator. And we also have Marnie Delaney, the organizer of our Global Women's Caucus Suffrage Centennial events. Sherry is going to introduce our speakers today, and after their comments, we'll have time for your questions and comments. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box. If you're on Zoom, if you're on Facebook, please type your questions into the comments. And before we begin, I would like to we're going to begin with a short video. Give me 1 second to get it turned on.
The Equal Rights Amendment. Equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. In 1909, Maggie Walker said, "The elevation of woman to her proper and rightful place has been the slowest work of the centuries." Well, Maggie, we are still working towards this common goal. The ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment is a monumental step, not only for Virginia, but for the nation and even the world. It is paramount that we continue to make our voices heard, so that women's rights can be protected, advanced, and equalized.
Equality! Now! ERA in the USA! ERA in the USA! ERA in the USA! ERA in the USA! What do we want? Equality! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Equality! When do we want it? Now!
Okay, that was a wonderful video. Sherry, over to you.
Thank you, Angela. Well, I want to introduce both Kati Hornung and Tonja Roberts-Brooks. Kati's one of my ERA heroes. She leads the VoteEqualityUS campaign. This is a national grassroots campaign promoting equal rights for all Americans. She previously led the VAratifyERA campaign that helped achieve Virginia's ratification of the Equal Rights Amendment, becoming the 38th and last state needed to ratify the ERA, but she'll tell you more about that. Her efforts have been driven by her own life experiences, the interest of her two children in correcting the purposeful historical exclusion of women from our Constitution. I first contacted Kati back in November 2018, saying Democrats Abroad had just started a project to help get the Equal Rights Amendment ratified, and is there anything I could do to help in Virginia? Well, Kati wrote back, exactly, there is, and she was very welcoming and offered concrete ways that we could help, and it's been a pleasure working with her. I got the wonderful opportunity to meet her in January of this year when I flew over the day that Virginia had ratified the Equal Rights Amendment, and it was so wonderful getting to meet her in person. I'm pleased to have her here today. Now, I also like to introduce Tonja. Tonja Roberts-Brooks is the Outreach Director for VoteEqualityUS. She has volunteered as a voter protection advocate for over 15 years, serving as an inside poll observer, reporting obstructions to and protecting the right to vote for all citizens. I hope also those of us that live abroad also. She has a BA in government from the University of Virginia and a JD from North Carolina Central University School of Law. She's a member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, the National Bar Association International Focus, and a recent graduate of the Candidate Training Program at the University of Virginia Sorenson's Institute. Her passion is advocating for quality education for all and safe housing opportunities with a particular focus on veterans. So Kati and Tonja, thank you so much for sharing information with Democrats Abroad today. Turn it over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. I would really like to thank Democrats Abroad, not only for having us today, but also for being such an important and vital part of our VA Ratify ERA campaign. I'm pretty sure you all did at least 10% of our total postcards, if not well more than that. And that's just the energy of postcards coming in from all Americans living in other countries where they were probably had better gender protection in that country's constitution than our own. It was great energy to bring into the campaign, and we really appreciate everything that you all did for that. So we think that Virginia was kind of the, I would call it the prelude to kind of the national fight. In Virginia, we got it all the way through the Senate. You know, we could ratify, I think we had it ratified 6 previous times in the Senate, but the House would never ever let it come to the floor for a debate and a vote. And in fact, this year is actually the first time ever that it came to the floor debate and vote. And so to get it done in Virginia, it took a change in leadership in the House. We didn't necessarily have to have a change in party because our Senate was Republican and they could still get it passed, but sometimes that leadership just really, they dig their claws in, and we're seeing that at the national level as well. We think that the Senate leadership is anti-gender equality in our Constitution. And so we're kind of taking a page straight out of the Virginia book, and we're gonna basically take an equality conversation on the road around the country. We're calling it VoteEqualityUS. Obviously, it's kind of our ask. We did that with the VA Ratify ERA. That was our ask. Virginia, ratify the ERA. And now this is our ask of all of America, vote equality. Equality is a multifaceted conversation, and it's a very timely conversation right now in America. And we have got to kind of start pulling together, and we need to be voting in equality leadership in the House and the Senate. We have it in the House, we need it in the Senate. So who we are a grassroots group. Our mission is to increase the awareness in the American public that we do not have gender equality in our Constitution, and to ensure that we get that fully ratified Equal Rights Amendment put into the Constitution. We're changing our language. We're now calling it the 28th Amendment, equal rights in parentheses, because we're just manifesting the happening that we need in this country. Our messaging is basically that 168 other nations have this in their Constitution, and we should too. That we are one step away, and whether it happens strictly through the Supreme Court or through congressional action and then going to the Supreme Court, no matter what is going to the Supreme Court. But these things don't happen, these decisions don't happen in a vacuum. And so our job is to go and amp up the energy around gender equality so that it's a conversation nobody can sidestep any longer. In 2018, with the VA Ratify campaign, we did a bus tour. We had a strong focus on really kind of the youth vote, colleges, community colleges, and historically Black colleges and universities. It wasn't a voting, it was a federal election that year, but we didn't have a state election that year. And so it was really a heavy duty issue push that year. The following year is when we switched to an electoral strategy. And this time we went everywhere. It was an 11.5-week I Scream for Equality tour. And it was a whole lot of fun, but also exhausting. And we went to a lot of the campuses. We went to city streets, parks, community events, parades, you name it, we were there. And we just canvassed the entire state for the entire 11.5 weeks leading up to the election. This year, taking the things we've learned out of these 2 tours, we're gonna take the best out of each tour, and we're gonna have 2, a Western route and a Southern route. Because of the international pandemic, we're going to be in an RV. It gives us a nice big canvas the way that the bus did. So it's a great graphical canvas. And we're going to go back to having people sign it because it just really made the tour a lot more energetic because you could see all the kind of support building along the tour. The bus started getting filled up with signatures as we went. So we'll take some of those pieces out of the bus tour. But we really do want to go and engage anybody and everybody the way we did with the Ice Cream for Equality tour, where we didn't focus solely on the college campuses, and we really were, just parking in a city street in a high traffic area and talking to people. Or we can go to a corporate headquarters if they have decided to support the tour and asked us to come. We can be in parades again. We can go to the campuses, and we're going to also have some programming, some educational programming. We intend to really work with the undergraduate campuses and the law schools. Again, the international pandemic makes things a little bit, we will stay flexible. Things are a little uncertain. We think that a lot of our programming is probably going to be virtual, and prior to the vehicle pulling into town, maybe about a week ahead of time. We're hopeful to have subject matter experts, lawyers, corporate leadership, and key advocates having conversations with students, whether they're law students or undergrads. What my personal dream is to just drop a lot of little pebbles in a really big lake and see where those ripples take us. We need a whole generation of young attorneys thinking about, with this in the Constitution, what is the strategy for dismantling systemic inequality in America? And if we have this as an opportunity for a litigation strategy, what does that look like to take on some of the many inequalities in our country? We do know that there is government-based gender discrimination in America, and we've got a really great website that we just launched this week. If I could point you to one slide on our website, there's an FAQ called "What Changes?" And I think that it gives a really good overview. These are the issues of systemic inequality in America, and this is what we need to be dismantling with litigation strategies, now that we're underpinned in the Constitution, once the 28th Amendment goes in. Our approach is basically to reach out to partners and sponsors and get them on board with amplification, advocacy, and sponsorship, and that we're looking for those to come together and make an impact. A lot of people will give lip service. I mean, I used to be in a really large company, and we had a great networking meeting for women and special affinity groups and such, but what we really want is action. I think that's what pretty much every feminist in America is looking towards. And so we're giving people concrete steps of what can you do to support the tour. And then as a part of the tour, we're starting to plant a lot of seeds all around the country on what needs to change. So we're looking for people to help with amplification in general, advocacy, sponsorship, and that time is of the essence. November 3rd is right around the corner. And just like when we were the VAratifyERA campaign, everyone is welcome. Equality is for all of us. We all need to pull together and work for it together. So we have a great team. We actually have leadership on the VoteEqualityUS team is made up of women who worked on the Nevada, the Illinois, and the Virginia ratifications. And so you've kind of got the grassroots people who got it done in all these states pulling together. And now we're taking that message to the country. And our fiscal sponsor is Center for the Common Ground. It's a 501c3, so we are a voter education and outreach tour. We're not out there working on behalf of any campaigns specifically. We are instead just working on general voter outreach and engagement on, we don't have constitutional equality yet, we need it, and please vote for an equality-oriented leadership in the US Senate. So with all of that, let me switch over and show you just very quickly, this is the website. It's just VoteEquality.us. It just came up this week, total labor of love. I do think it was harder than birthing 2 babies without drugs, but we're here finally. And on this website in particular, the FAQs will really hit pretty much anything and everything. If you see something that's not on there, drop us a line. We have a great team of attorneys that is working together on language for FAQs and messaging. The tour itself, we've got information here about the Southern tour, the Western tour, where it's going to go. Later this weekend, we'll be popping up all the schools, all the universities and such that we'll be engaging with. And so if you want to help with connecting us with anybody at a particular university, that should hopefully be up by the end of this week or end of the weekend. And this is where I look forward to turning it over to Tonja, her lengthy experience working on getting out the voter strategies for making sure people are not having their votes not counted, etc. We have a page on your vote. And on this page, if you all as Democrats abroad see something that needs to be added in here to particularly help and assist somebody who is living abroad and comes across this website, we are open to revisions. We are obviously limited. We can only post nonpartisan links and such. But if there are some notes that you think would be helpful, we're happy to change this. And then also, after people figure out their own vote, we need them to go and help others. And this is where I'll turn over to Tonja.
Hi, everybody, and thank you, Katie. Thank you so much for everyone who's online and visiting with us today. I appreciate your time. I wanted to talk a bit about, and I know you can relate to this on the previous screen, you may have seen the caption that says, put on your oxygen mask first. And you hear that being abroad when you're traveling back to the States, you know, you get the little spiel about, you know, pulling down your oxygen mask if you have a little one with you and protecting yourself first and then helping them. And that's what we are embracing here, the same concept. Make sure that you are in line to vote, that you have all the documents that you need in order to vote absentee or however you're going to get your vote processed. I will tell you that there has been much talk about the mail and how it may be slow this year, even more so with the pandemic of COVID going on, as well as attitudes of possible voter suppression. And so in order to fight that, we need to be prepared. And the best way to prepare is to prepare early. I believe we have, it's September the 18th, right, Katie, when, well, in Virginia, that is a deadline of when the earliest time that you can get your ballots. And I would suggest that you go to, I think we have a hyperlink where you can go and check, it's Vote 411. And you can check out whether you are in line to vote and everything is okay for you. You can also check family and friends as well. You can check the rules and regulations in your particular state as to whether, you know, what those rules are, whether, you know, whatever it is that you need to have in place, you can go directly to that link and find out. Are you able to click on that kind of quickly? Yeah. On the right, and so you'll see each of your states, and you can just click on a state, and it's gonna take you directly to all the information that you need for your state to make sure that you're able to get your ballot in place and to tell others, to help others. So once you've cast your vote, then your job is to help others, to help them put on their oxygen mask. It has been stifling these past few years, and we need to make sure that we are moving towards our focus, which is equality for all people, for everyone. And our particular focus is on gender equality. So we want you to spread the word, let other people know, let what you know, direct them to that, to the websites, help them, if they trust you, help them walk through each of the sections there if you're able to go online and gather your ballot. In certain states, you are able to vote absentee without even having an excuse. And so that's important to look up to see which state actually has that opportunity for you. And these are some other ways that you can, I guess, be a part. You can tell people in the states that they are short on poll workers because of the COVID pandemic. And I keep referring to COVID pandemic because we have a few pandemics going on in the U.S. Dealing with Black Lives Matter, dealing with the focus on potential voter suppression. We've heard talk even of them, someone floating the idea of postponing elections, which that's just, I can't even imagine that happening. But you have folks who are having that type of dialogue and conversation, and so we have to be prepared. We have to be ready and armed. And the way that we do that is by getting people out there and getting the information out to everybody. But with the pandemic of COVID, the community that's most affected or this at a higher risk are people over the age of 70, and they are usually, or in the past have usually been people working at the polls, because they are a lot of times are retired and they're able to be there all day. So now you see the movement in most states where you can be even 16 years old and be a poll worker. The rules for that vary from state to state, but that is an opportunity to allow younger people to have a little part-time job for that day. And so maybe check those links out as well. And if you know someone in the States who could help out with that, please refer them. And they will have, of course, all protections in place as far as how to be safe in working at the polls as well. And let's see, is there another link that we want to go to? I think that's pretty much an overview.
I think, especially for Democrats abroad, this first one about contacting friends and family, it was an extreme disappointment to both Sherry and me to realize that Americans living abroad are not allowed to use Hustle, which is one of the big kind of get out the vote apps in America. This particular app has been designed and created by one of our partners who works with Reclaim Our Vote and with the Center for Common Ground. This one should be okay for people living abroad, because what it's doing is it's essentially kind of automating a messaging through your own texting. It uses your contacts without exporting them anywhere. Your data is your data. And all it does is kind of serves up some sample language. We're going to be, again, kind of working on that language in the next week or so that you have more choices for, whether you want to do an education sort of information outreach versus, hey, check your voter registration status here, et cetera. But this allows any American anywhere, and quite frankly, it could be anybody anywhere. I don't think you even have to be American on this one, but to send notes, kind of pre-formatted notes to people who are in your own contact list. So even if you're living abroad, you have tons of friends back home, and this allows you to send them messaging related to get out the vote here in America. So I think we will not run into the limitations that we had last year. Also, the app is free, and then it just uses whatever your text plan is. So if you're on unlimited texts, then everything should be free, which is great for grassroots organizing. So I think with that, do we want to move over to some Q&A, Sherry, or is there anything in particular that you think we missed before we move over to Q&A?
If there is, we'll catch it in the Q&A.
Okay.
Hopefully. So Angela, over to you, I think.
Yes, if you have any questions, please write them in the Q&A box, not the chat. And if you're on Facebook Live, please put your questions in the comments and we'll pick them up from there. And we'll try to answer as many as possible today. And yes, of course. Thank you. Thank you, Tonja and Katie. I'm so happy that Virginia ratified the ERA. I've been waiting for the ERA to become a constitutional amendment since I was a little girl. So this really means a lot to me. Yeah, it really does. Marnie, would you like to ask the first question?
Sure, and I've been waiting. I was working on it in 70s and 80s. So I salute you for hanging in there. So I think our first question for people that people have is, now that it's happened, now that you've done this wonderful thing and Virginia has been the final state to ratify, what happens? What has to happen? I mean, do we have to flip the Senate? What are the requirements to make this a part of the Constitution?
So there is a court case in the DC Circuit. The Virginia AG, along with the Illinois and Nevada AGs, all filed to force the National Archivist to add this to the Constitution. He did record Virginia's ratification. He has just not done the steps of certification and publishing the amendment. So that is kind of winding its way through the court system. My personal theory is that the Supreme Court would love to not carve new trail and have to rule on things like deadlines and rescissions, and that congressional action will be the fastest way to get this into the Constitution. To make that congressional action happen, nothing needs to happen with the House other than the quality leadership that's there right now just needs to hold it and then pass the same resolution recognizing the 28th Amendment that they passed this year. They can just do it again next year. In the Senate, we do need a change in leadership so that we end up with a Senate leadership that will prioritize gender equality. And so to that end, when we talk about our key states, actually, this is a good way to look at it. These are all the states that have active Senate races in the US Senate currently. And these are our 8 states for the 28th. We have 3 here in the South and we have 5 out West. The tours are designed around those states with most of the time spent in those 8 states. Obviously that trip out West, we're gonna be going through a lot of different places, but it gives us the opportunity to honk the horn at Mitch McConnell in Kentucky and go support some of our friends who are working to ratify in Missouri, other friends working to ratify in Utah. So we'll use that tour to our full advantage. But this is kind of the roadmap, in my opinion. I believe that to get an equality leadership installed, the Democrats are going to have, I think they have to take at least 3 seats, maybe 4. And obviously the fight down in Alabama is going to be a tough one. So 4, maybe 5 would be great. But so again, we are a nonpartisan campaign. So we're working on the education, the outreach, and just telling people about the issue, and then recommending that they find out who is supportive of equality, gender equality in our Constitution, and who is not, and that they consider that when they go to the polls. We do also have another map. I love the maps, maybe a little overboard. There are 3 on this site, and they're each a little bit different. SJ6 is currently sponsored by Senator Cardin, the Democrat out of Maryland, and Lisa Murkowski, the Republican up in Alaska. So we have a nice bipartisan carry there. And these are all the senators who have already signed on. So like here in Virginia, both of our senators have signed on. And so this gives you information to contact anybody who has not signed on, et cetera. But it also, if an incumbent is running, you can easily tell what their stance is on SJ6. It currently is sponsored by, I believe it's 49 senators. It's basically every single Democrat, both independents, and 2 Republican women. So it has very nice, solid support. I think if it did come to a floor vote today, it probably would pass, because who wants to go on the record in an election year voting against women? However, I don't believe that, this is kind of a reboot of what happened in Virginia. Mitch McConnell's not going to let it go to the floor the same way that Speaker Cox wouldn't let it go to the floor here in Virginia. So thus the need to get out the word and get a leadership installed that will prioritize women.
Katie, can I just jump in for a second? There's a question in the queue from another Katie. And so maybe there a little bit of explanation as to what's actually going on. It's already it's ratified, but there was a little glitch, I guess in the past, where there was a deadline, and the House removed the deadline on their side, and so the same bill is just sitting on the Senate side waiting to go to the floor, and Mitch McConnell will not allow it off of his desk. So the Senate side is requesting the removal of the deadline as well. But so that's why the push to get more equality-friendly senators into the seats, so that we can move things off of Mitch's desk and keep it flowing. So, but she wanted to know in particular about Arizona.
Yes. So there is a really good push in many of the unratified states right now. Like when I think about some of the, wonderful grassroots activists doing things in different places. Missouri has a strong push. Utah has a strong push. Arizona has a very strong push. And then down in the South, North Carolina has a great set of activists working on it. South Carolina has got a renewed, strong effort. They actually don't think that they need to change leadership in their House and their Senate. They just need to get more people educated and get it done. So they've got a big push. Georgia has a big push. Alabama has one legislator who is bringing it back. And so that they're kind of at the infant stages of their push. Florida has a lot of people on the ground working on it. I believe Mississippi and Louisiana are also kind of at the early stages. Louisiana maybe is a little bit further along than Mississippi or Alabama. I haven't heard much out of Oklahoma, but I'm sure there's somebody there thinking about it. So it is active in all these places. And, honestly, it would give credence to the cultural shift as more states ratify. Even after we got the 19th Amendment passed, states still ratified later. Virginia sadly took another 32 years or something, but those ratifications do happen eventually because almost every constitutional amendment, there's the 3/4 of the states that get it done. And then there's that last quarter that kind of comes in slowly afterwards. And so we're hopeful that our tour will go amplify. We are working with the folks on the ground in all these states. We're not looking to go in and take over their ratification process. We're just looking to bring in, kind of amplify the fun, get some earned media, and really help stir up that conversation in their state for them.
Great. Sherry?
Yeah, one of the questions that keeps coming up is, and I'm sure it's on your FAQs, but why is it important to have the equal rights? Do we really need it? Why does it need to be there? So just want you to share your thoughts on that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna, this is the one FAQ I really like. If anybody spent just 5 minutes on our website, please look at this one. There is a laundry list of things that I would like to see changed, but really it comes down to Congress's legislative capacity is going to increase by having this constitutional amendment, specifically because that section 2 of the amendment says Congress has the right to now enforce laws based on this statement. Also, currently, you are not likely to win a gender discrimination case. If you're bringing a case against race, religion, or country of origin discrimination, you have about a 3 out of 4 chance of winning that case. And so people will take those cases forward. If you're bringing a gender discrimination case, you have a less than half and half. So you're less likely to win. And this will change that. And then ultimately, this is my favorite long list here. We really need to be talking about what are the systemic inequities. I think many of us have grown so accustomed to just how things are that we don't think about them and talk about them because honestly, you'd be really angry every day of your life. But what we need to be doing is dismantling a lot of these systemic issues that go on, and these are government actions because it's a constitutional amendment. It will impact directly government action, and so this is a list of all the things that I and friends of mine have been able to kind of put together and say, no, this is where government is actively pushing a discrimination agenda, whether conscious or subconscious, I don't really care, I want it to stop. So this amendment will give us that ability to strategize legally. What's that legal strategy for dismantling the discrimination that has been baked into the system?
Right. So this is an unusual question, but back when I was doing this, the big arguments were things like women were having to share bathrooms and women were going to be in the armed forces required. And I think we've seen that there's been some progress on that anyway. We know that it wasn't really any of that that defeated it. It was money, as usual, from insurance industry and so on. So what are the arguments that are carrying any weight now these
They
days?
seem to be down to a couple. They will still throw out the draft, and it's almost like they're not upset that we would send only men to war when women are volunteers in our military. So I think they're starting to lose that argument often enough that they've given up on it. But they are still using the bathroom argument. They're also using transgender rights as an argument and kind of a fear mongering. That has moved into the space of, sports. Are the girls going to lose their sports teams? And a lot of it is really, I would describe it as cultural fear mongering. We have people who are always going to be uncomfortable with change, and they were very effective back in the 70s and 80s in shutting down what women needed in the courtroom with a fear of cultural shift and change. And I think what we can see from the history is that cultural shift and change happens regardless of whether or not women are going to be treated evenly and even-handedly in the courtroom. And so the things they fear, that's going to happen with or without the amendment. The amendment is really about fixing the inequities in our legal system and strengthening the protections. And there are, by the way, I will mention, there is also an impact on men with the Equal Rights Amendment. We do list here paternity leave. Paternity leave in America does not equal maternity leave. And there are going to be really good conversations going forward about how do we even that out. And then also with men, like the draft, there are men's rights groups working to make sure that the draft is not a single sex draft. And so that is already working its way through the system. It's already been declared unconstitutional, that's being challenged, et cetera. But again, society is going to keep growing and shifting and changing. What we really want to do is make sure that gender equality is underpinned in the foundational document of our country. We want our kids to see that this is a value that we hold. We want the court system to be treating all the different kinds of discrimination even-handedly. And we really want to give lawyers better tools in the toolbox to go after a bunch of these government discriminations.
Wow. I was looking at the chart on your website, which I plan to share out on all our social media channels, about the senators. And it's amazing to me that most of the people that support the ERA are Democrats and some Republican women, but other Republican women just don't care. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But what I want to ask about is, there are a lot of women of color that believe that the ERA is mainly meant to help middle-class white women. Is that true today? And how will the ERA help women of color?
Well, I'll answer that if I could just jump in. The ERA is for everyone. It's just not, it is not color-based. It may have been that in the media years ago, the face of the ERA was predominantly Caucasian, but I'll go back even to 1913 in the women's suffrage movement. There were African-American women there on the scene at that time as well. And even in the suffrage march, there was a delegation. That was one of the first acts of social action that Delta Sigma Theta participated in, and they had a large delegation. And of course, as the years have evolved and people's thought processes have been more embracing, you see everyone at the table. This is an opportunity for equality for all people. So it doesn't have a color. There's no race to it. It's just for everybody. It's for, my daughter, anyone's daughter, for myself, for my mom. And I think when you put in that perspective, then you realize that there's no need to kind of go down that path, because, we all can join the fight. We all are welcome to come in and help make this a reality, because we're all going to benefit. So why wouldn't I come in and help and join and push because, you know, you're going to benefit, everybody's going to benefit, men will benefit. So it's a good thing. So it's a win-win for everyone. It's not a race thing.
Sherry?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Make sure I'm not on mute. No, I'm not on mute. Okay. So, Angela, I'm going to take one of your questions that you were going to ask and add to it. That is, what can we as Democrats abroad do to support you? Of course, we know you want money, and we want money. Everyone wants money. But in addition to that, we do have a voter protection action group within Democrats Abroad, and may want to share with you some of the things we have done there. The other thing that we have is we have a Vote from Abroad widget that is something that if you could put on your website, and all this does is anyone with a non-US IP address that comes up, it pops up and says, are you living abroad? If so, you can register to vote by clicking on this. And our Vote from Abroad website is nonpartisan. Even though it's supported by Democrats Abroad, it is completely nonpartisan, and Republicans use it. So we'd love it if you would add that to your website.
Happy to do that. Absolutely.
But again, what kinds of things can we do, and where can we help? We're out now calling all 180,000 of our members, trying to make sure they are registered to vote, because unfortunately, Americans overseas have to request their ballot every election year to get a ballot. And we're also, of course, worried about the mail, and for those states where we are required to mail back the ballot, looking at doing the early absentee ballot to send in. So anyway, where can we help you?
I guess first of all, we will be happy to put that widget on there. And if you'll send it to me, I will get it on there again by the end of the weekend. And as far as, you know, get out the vote, get out the word. For the voting side of that, on that Help Others page, we do have that link called Vote Force, and that should be a great tool to use your cell phones to contact people you know back here in America. Like I said, it won't download your personal data anywhere. It's just purely going to help with kind of dropping some preformed messages into your own text box. So I would highlight that from a get out the vote side. And then as far as the campaign, honestly, amplification, if people have, like at the end of the weekend when we've got a list of the schools, if people have contacts at those schools and say, hey, I can connect you with so-and-so who's in charge of this at this school, that is very helpful. If anybody wants to actually join the team, we have a media team, we have a fundraising team, we have all these different teams, and it doesn't matter where in the world you are. A lot of our kind of organizing meetings are happening at noon Eastern time, because that would hopefully be a good time if somebody's, you know, 6 hours ahead of us. And it's also for the people who are 3 hours behind us, it's not too early for them. And so if that time works in somebody's schedule, that's when a lot of our organizing meetings happen. But we have some meetings that happen at other times as well. And quite frankly, a lot of our stuff, if you join the team and say, I will take this piece and carve this out and get this done, there are honestly tons of things that we can just give to people. You know, sometimes people come to me and say, I got 2 hours, what do you need me to look up? And sometimes there, you know, I have a long list of things that when I have time, I will get to X, Y, and Z. And most of our team is really focused and scoped, and, you know, they have kind of their structure on what they're trying to get done. There's always a little list of, you know, people we can call, or research to be done, or Google searches to get the, you know, like the one right now for this weekend, Google searches to figure out the social media hashtags and such for every single person who's running in one of these active Senate races. So, you know, there's always, I'll call it grunt work, but there's always grunt work to be done. So even if you only have an hour or two and you just say, hey, just, you know, tell me something that needs to be done in the next couple of days, I can do it in an hour or two, whatever. You know, we're happy to plug people in, whatever works for them. I mean, it's an all volunteer effort at this point, and because of that, we can't be picky. We just can be welcoming. And so that's what we try to do, is match people's interests with what we need to get done.
Okay, great, thank you.
So where did the money come from that was fighting against you?
So here in
Or
Virginia,
us, I should say, fighting against us.
I can give a very specific answer here in Virginia, and it was definitely kind of an extremist religious angle. It seems like in the 70s, there was probably a fairly good corporate like, ugh, sort of moment where they were like, we're not sure we want this equality thing in the Constitution. This time around, you know, the briefs that have been filed in Virginia v. VAratifyERA, we have them on the website. We have an FAQ called Virginia v. VAratifyERA. There's one corporate brief that's been filed by 108 companies with very recognizable names: Google, PepsiCo, American Express, etc. And so the corporations are on board. They know that diversity and inclusion is a win in the business column, and that continued discrimination is a terrible business plan. And so this time around, it seems like we're into a culture war, and it seems to be driven by kind of a religious extremist viewpoint about women and equality.
Right.
Which, by the way, I don't think they're going to win that war.
No.
Not now.
No. So once it was, well, I'm going to not say that. I'm just curious as to what your besides the announcement of the vote, which had to be sweet, and I'm sure it was for Sherry too. Do you have any favorite moments? This is just a personal curiosity. Dawning awareness or what?
You know, it feels like it's been a fairly exhausting slog. But you know, probably my favorite moment was when we went up to the House of Representatives in DC, and my two kids and my friend's daughter were taken by our female congresswoman to the floor of the House to meet the female Speaker of the House. And that was a moment that I just was like, sitting up in the gallery, just like, and that wasn't even a dream of mine as a child. Like, I've never been a super politically oriented, involved person. I know I am suddenly now, but you know, I always thought of women in business and executives, and that was kind of the world I lived in. But to sit in that gallery and say, this wasn't even a thought on my radar that women could be in charge of the government when I was a kid. And then to watch my children down there on the floor. And I mean, they were meeting the number of famous women on that floor that they met that day yeah. I think if there has to be a really powerful moment, that was probably it.
That's a good one.
Wow, that's yeah, that would be an amazing moment. I never really thought of it like that, that women weren't in charge of our government or really too much of anything. And now Nancy Pelosi is the third in line for the presidency. It's kind of amazing. On that vein, how do we get younger people to vote and think about the ERA? There's a lot of young people that, especially young women, that don't think the ERA is still necessary. How can we fix that?
Tonja, you want to take that one?
I think we're seeing that a lot more now with organizations that are rallying behind equal rights. And I know my children, you know, bringing kids to marches and, you know, and being consumed in this campaign, it kind of rubs off. And I think the next generation is just so ready. I guess, is this called the, is this Me Too? Not Me Too, Gen X. I'm not really sure which generation letter it is, but because I'm older and I have kids who are adults and I have kids in high school, but I just, they're much more passionate. And I think to get them engaged and give them a part of the campaign, for example, you know, we have a couple of teenagers who are, what are they doing, Katie? Some research or, you know, looking up names and, you know, that getting young people involved early, I think is the key to help them to realize that these are just not things that are for other people, that these are things for them, that this will affect how they live and their lifestyle. And so there are a lot of organizations out there that young people can get involved in, you know, and sign up for. There, a lot of things are online now. And so this is a great opportunity to even do things from home and still, you know, have an impact. So
Yeah, on the partisan side, since it matches up with you all pretty well, Gen Ratify is a group that's doing outreach specifically to kind of that high school, college crowd. They're more partisan, like we have to toe the nonpartisan line because of 501c3 rules. They are training people on how to work for campaigns and supporting people who specifically support gender equality. And so I think when young people see themselves in the effort, then more young people will come to the effort. And so we do have some, you know, young, like Liza in that first video and such, we have some young faces that are starting to take more of a leadership role, and the more that we can push them forward and other people can see, oh, that's important to her and that should be important to me too. I also think we need to talk more about how short the time has been that this equality that the youth feel has even been real, and the fact that they're in academic environments which are kind of a bubble, because you can feel very equal and fair all the way through, you know, high school and college, and you know, because there are, you know, you're in an environment where people are actively trying to provide opportunities to everybody. And then all of a sudden you get out into the working world, and maybe that first couple years out, you're still feeling pretty equal, but then all of a sudden, oh, wait a minute, I'm getting paid less than that guy. Or, and those are things that they start to peel off layer by layer, and you start to see it the older you become. And so I would say the women in our 40s and 50s, we need to be looking back and saying, okay, women in your 20s, you think you're this, just, you know, like keep an eye out. Here's what you should be looking for today, because as that compounds over the years, here's what it'll look like when you're in your 40s and 50s. And we need to kind of be pulling through the youth to understand how if you don't keep on it constantly, that inequality will compound upon itself, and before you know it, the wage gap is tremendous, or the opportunities that a woman is going to receive is just not going to really be there in a way that we would want it to be. So I think some of it is also a matter of actually talking about it. Let's talk about these inequalities. You know, we have a lot of people talking about a lot of pieces going on, and like I said, like, if you want to sit and think about how angry you should be every day of your life, there are so many choices right now. But ultimately, what can we do? What's in front of us? What can we pick up today and make a change and make the world a little bit better? And so trying to also demonstrate that, kind of like what Tonja's saying, when, you know, it's going to rub off on other people when we're doing things and trying to do pieces at a time, then they can see, okay, well, that then did this, and I see how that does that. Okay, I should do a little bit more myself. So all of it.
Great.
Marnie, do you have another question?
No, not really. I mean, I guess I did have one, and that was the benefits of collaboration. Were there a lot of organizations that came to Virginia, and was the collaboration, you know, a positive experience? And what lessons, I guess, did you learn within that?
So we definitely had, like on our postcard campaign, you all were supporting from abroad. We had people in every single state send in postcards. So we were collaborating our brains out as much as we could. We basically had, you know, VAratifyERA was an umbrella campaign, and it was really, the intention was to bring everybody together that wanted to work for gender equality. We weren't trying to build a list or steal anybody's members or whatever. And because of that, the organizations could really just all show up and push together. And so that was very effective. That type of collaborating, really, honestly, in Virginia, I wouldn't even say that it was hard, because we were so issue focused. When you stay focused on just getting the issue done, you know, a lot of the other stuff kind of goes away. And that's really how we tried to do it. Of course, there's always, I mean, it's volunteering, it's activism, it's politics. Of course, there's going to be little skirmishes here and there. But at the end of the day, I think even even people that, you know, I may not have had the easiest conversations with a number of times, at the very end, we were inviting them in, come celebrate, you were a part of this, you know, no matter what, like your work was a part of this work, and please come and be a part of it. So I think that we, you know, our focus always was to try to be inclusive. If something wasn't working out and we had to go in a different direction, you just got to do what you got to do. But at the same time, that person is still a part of the effort. Every single person, when the table's equality, every single person should be there and working in some capacity, or be allowed to be there working in some capacity. And, you know, it's hard. I mean, it's a hard slog to push an issue and an effort and push on political power, to try and push corporations. I mean, we have corporations that should be the first to stand in line and say, I totally support you. And they were nowhere to be seen. So, you know, it was a harder push than you would have expected, or it was a much harder push than I expected. You know, it's 2020. Why is this so hard? But, you know, I think we just have to, as much as possible, stay in a positive space and invite everybody in, and, you know, just make it work in some way, make it work. If two people aren't working there, just, you know, separate them. It's just like my kids, like sometimes they get along great and sometimes they don't. And when that you know, they're not getting along moment happens, you know, you just give them some space, give them something else to do, a little bit of redirection, but we can all keep still working on it. So that's generally how I would position, you know, the parts of it that we were working on as a part of our effort.
Katie, can I interject right here? Daniel Stein has a question, and he says that among the various tasks, research, letter writing, phone banking, please fill in the important extras or et ceteras that I'm missing. What can or cannot be done by non-citizens? I live in Mexico and have multiple friends from other countries who would help.
That's great. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I would, from our perspective, because this is about education and outreach, you know, anybody can write a postcard from anywhere. You know, we're just doing voter education, voter outreach. We do have on the Help Others, this Reclaim Our Vote project. I'm fairly certain, I can go double check it, but this fighting of voter suppression, this is about re-registering community of color voters here in America who are getting dropped off voter rolls in ways that aren't always above board. And this is, again, this is kind of like a sister project under our fiscal sponsor. I'm pretty certain that they should try contacting a regional volunteer coordinator there, and I will talk to Andrea specifically. She's the one that runs this, because I do think that especially when all you're saying is like, are you registered to vote? You know, are you, like, do you know how to get your ballot, et cetera? Like, these are very important messages. And I think that from a nonprofit perspective side of it would probably be okay. I do know there's a whole like foreign meddling in American elections sensitivity. And so that's where I do want to go double check some of that with Andrea. But I think, you know, if all that the messaging is basically, because especially with what that project's doing, those are people who were registered to vote and they've been dropped off the voter rolls. And so it's just trying to contact a voter and saying, hey, you know, you might want to go get registered to vote. We don't know how that person's going to vote. We just know that we don't support voter suppression, and this is one of the tactics, and that's a good thing for us to do. You know, democracy works better when we're all involved. So that's our push.
I wonder about postcards from countries where gender equality is in their constitution. You know, could they send a postcard saying, we have it in our constitution, why don't you?
Yeah, that could be really fun. You know, Mexico and Canada, our neighbors to the north and south, they both got it. So yeah, absolutely. I will take that question and specifically like kind of keep an eye on this page in particular. We'll add, I see that Katie also gave us kind of some words to add on this page. We will change and revise this, and given that question, let me go do a little research and see if I can come up specifically with things, you know, things that Americans can do abroad, but also just things that are, you know, that anybody that cares about an American democracy could maybe do to help.
So, So I see one final question, I think, and that is, it says of sex. And so what is the difference in this case between sex and gender, and what does that mean for LGBTQ and everybody, you know, and anybody? What's the difference?
So previously it was a little bit like sex, gender. The Bostock case that was just decided this year, we've actually changed all of our wording to the word gender because in our feedback from the LGBT plus community, they consider that a more inclusive word. And now that the court has basically said, you know, sex would cover LGBT plus as well, it's not just a binary word. So we've just switched to the word gender. You'll see that one because people talk more about gender discrimination or gender equality than they talk about like sex equality. That's not a phrase that goes as comfortably from people's mouths. So we've switched to just saying gender. But that Bostock case, and we do have an FAQ it's listed under transgender because that's always one of the key questions we get. And we've got a nice quote from the Bostock case that, you know, this is an inclusive amendment and it's an inclusive effort.
Great, helpful, thank you.
It doesn't appear that we have any more questions in our Q&A box. So thank you both for joining us today, Katie and Tonja, and thank you, Sherry and Marnie. And thank everybody who joined us today. And if you sent in a question, thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
I want to
Let me just add to that. I want to thank both of you also. As I mentioned at the beginning, Katie's my ERA hero, and now you know why. I don't know Tonja yet, but I suspect she'll move up into that category and get that title as well. But I really appreciate everything that Democrats Abroad has been doing for the Equal Rights Amendment. It's one of the things close to my heart. And, you know, I loved it last year. I think it was in May of 2019 when Katie said, well, we can't get these guys to change their mind. So if they won't change their mind, let's vote the bastards out. And they did. So it was great. And that's what we have to do this year is we have to get out there and vote and look at the pro ERA people. And because Democrats Abroad is partisan, I can say vote for Democrats. And then you will be pretty safe in voting for a pro ERA person. So I appreciate everyone's time and appreciate particularly Katie and Tonja coming on and sharing their words of wisdom with us today. And I know Marnie wants to close with a few extra words as well.
Oh, thank you. I just want to remind people to look on the Global Women's Caucus calendar. We have some more events coming up, and I want to mention really important is at the end on Women's Equality Day, the day of the suffrage amendment, which is August 26th. We're going to have a global phone bank project, and we're going to have as many people on the phones. You can be doing it through any group anywhere in the world, but we want you to click on to sign up on our calendar so that we can get a count of all the people doing this, and we can go out there and say, you know, this is a powerful effort from Democrats Abroad, and so if you can check for the calendar, and please come and listen to all of our other speakers. They may or may not be just as good as today, and also, you know, get signed up for the phone banking. That's the bottom line right now, is get people registered. And then also tell your friends, any American friends you have, to go to votefromabroad.org and get themselves, get their request in for their absentee ballot. It's just a super simple way to do things. So I think those are all my reminders for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us. I've enjoyed the day and the questions. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. I think those are very thoughtful and engaging questions. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Thank everyone who's joined us today. And if you enjoyed this webinar, like we've enjoyed it, it would be great if you would make a donation to Democrats Abroad. You can donate at democratsabroad.org/donate, any amount. We are, the more the merrier, but any amount is good. Thank everyone and everybody. Support the ERA because women deserve equal rights. And everybody have a great weekend.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.